Hello. So this is a video that I wanted to do about a current event and some of the public discourse around it. And in case you're watching this in the future, this video is about an event in December 24 where a person named Luigi Mangione traveled to New York City to stalk and murder Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. I've been bothered by a lot of the commentary, particularly posts supporting him and his murder. So I felt that there was a need to go over this a little bit in video. Maybe not a need, but I like to talk about the way that people think about events, and I do that in the Substack newsletter. And I think that this one deserves a little bit of a video. And I think the reason why some people have been supporting him, it's a very simple line of reasoning. I would argue that it's an oversimple line of reasoning. Basically, the argument that I typically see online from his supporters are that healthcare, or that health insurers are murdering people, and that it's about time for people, possibly as the underclass, to strike back and create fear in the people running these networks, and that the killing was justified because of all the murders that United Healthcare did. And we will get to these claims. We'll address that line of reasoning. But first, just a few disclaimers. I assume that many of you may have some familiarity with my channel. Not that I have a lot of subscribers or anything, and not that I put out a whole lot of videos. I represent the liberal technocratic instinct on the left. I'm very much not a populist. I am open in theory to a very technocratic socialism, but I'm a gradualist, and I think most socialists would not agree with me, certainly not in the way that I talk and think about issues. Marxists would definitely not agree with me. I find value in a lot of the existing institutions, traditions, and norms of society. I think they're very important. But I recognize that health insurance is a pretty bad way to manage healthcare costs in a modern society, or in any society that we know of. I much prefer a general single-payer model. I much prefer a model where the general tax burden supports healthcare at some level for everyone. I see it as negotiable whether it covers everything that people might want or not, but I think it's important that it cover most things. And there's good critiques of United Healthcare, even in the context of our existing healthcare networks. I say this as somebody who actually has United Healthcare currently as my healthcare plan. I don't like it. I don't like them. I really don't like the way that they reimburse doctors and healthcare providers. Means that I get shoddy healthcare in certain ways. Physical therapy, which I've been in a lot over the last 2 years because of 2 surgeries, one in my ankle, one in my knee. They don't reimburse it very well, and so physical therapists, really important, skilled, good people, they often are living very close to poverty. It's a lot like social workers, very important jobs that are not well respected, that are not well paid. And one of the problems with squeezing physical therapists so much is that they don't have the time to give one-on-one care with people. You see a lot of the big physical therapy networks. The physical therapist will be seeing 2 or 3 people at the same time because they just cannot structure their practice so that they can make a living and keep paying rent and keep putting food on their table with the wages that they can get from the really low reimbursement that United Healthcare provides. United Healthcare generally has approved of most of my healthcare expenses, not all of them, but I happen to be fortunate to be doing well career-wise, that doesn't stop me too much. But there's a lot of people who are not in my position, who are in a really shoddy position where they have health insurance, if they even have that, and United Healthcare will find more ways to put the squeeze on doctors and put the squeeze on other healthcare providers, but oddly not hospitals, because we don't regulate healthcare very well in this country, and health insurance companies are allowed to have significant, or I believe complete, ownership of hospitals. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. Doctors are, by contrast, not permitted to have ownership of hospitals. It's a really weird, bad, messed up model. The legislation around healthcare sucks. United Healthcare sucks even for a health insurance company. So yes, I am in agreement with people who observe both of those things I consider to be essentially facts. That we don't structure funding of healthcare very well in this country, and that United is particularly bad among health insurers. That said, money for procedures is not infinite. Any system is going to have some sharp edges, or it won't be viable. Just as an example, if it costs $1 million a year to give somebody a medicine, they shouldn't get that medicine, even if it means that they die. I think it's reasonable to limit healthcare costs available to any person to be something around what the average person in society earns over a year in society. You might decide to be a little more flexible than that, but if you ever find somebody receiving an amount of health care that grossly exceeds what the average person makes, that's not viable. You can't do that. So any healthcare payment system, whether it's government run and single payer, or whether it's through private insurance, is going to tell people no to some health care that they might need to survive. That's unavoidable. The problem with United is that it says no far too often to things that are not even close to that threshold. What is the route to fix this in a society? And I think the answer is actually better laws. We need to have major reform, either that would preserve health insurance but regulate it a lot more strictly, and probably change some of those ownership restrictions, barring health insurers from owning hospitals, allowing doctors collectively to own hospitals, regulating a lot more about when health insurers can say yes and no, more transparency about the raw statistics of that, or just get rid of health insurance entirely from our system and make it be something that is predominantly or entirely supported through the general tax burden, which would declare either all or much of basic health to be a right. We could decide that that's a new right that we're going to give everybody in our society. I think that this would be a good idea. But what's going to change things is better laws. You're not going to be able to scare health insurance companies into treating people better, because they will always be taking advantage of not needing to report things. There's not a lot of general transparency in what they approve of and what they don't. And if you get them to agree to do something now but don't embed it in the law, then they're going to change it in a few years or whenever the heat gets off of them. So the use of anything to scare them into behaving better is not going to work. But there's something a lot more fundamental than this. And the thing is, even if it did work, it would be wrong. Assassination is almost never a good solution in a society with representative government, and it's not acceptable here. there is potentially room for direct action in some to deal with some problems in society, and even an incredibly narrow possible room for direct action that's violent. But that doesn't remotely fit here. People in a position of people that are not in a position of high political power, like Brian Thompson, should not need to worry about being murdered, provided that they follow laws. And we can defer discussion of legitimate political violence for some other video, some other topic. It's an interesting topic, but it's just not relevant here because we live in a society with a representative government, unpredictable elections, the ability to write to your legislators. And I know that this is another area where some very radicalized people have argued that that system doesn't work very well. I can't immediately get what I want. And the response to that is really improving the state of things is not easy. It never has been easy. Improving the state of things has happened slowly over long periods of time with consistent pressure and consistent effort to get legislators to improve laws around things. And that's how you get progress. And progress is possible within our society. And yes, it's not quick. The Affordable Care Act was a bit of progress on health care. And we can look at all sorts of other areas where labor rights have improved over time. It is possible. It's something that you can observe if you look with open eyes. You can see that having representative government gives us the ability to fix things. Yeah, it's not easy. You have to build a consensus. You have to keep attention on the topic. You have to convince people. You have to show up to arguments, because not everybody's going to be on board with every change. You might occasionally get some very, very rich people who don't buy insurance because they can afford out of pocket to pay for everything. It's not super common because a lot of surgeries are quite expensive, but some people can do it. There is some thin percentage of people who do not ever run into money issues, and they just might not be interested in this. Some of them may be opposed to it philosophically. Some of them may be opposed to it because it doesn't impact them, and they don't really know anybody who it impacts. And there's even some people who are not super wealthy who are just philosophically opposed to having the government do anything. There are some political ideologies that are around that. People don't always vote in terms of directly a notion of self-interests. We all have notions of what is right and wrong, and sometimes that complicates things. But the point is, if you can build and sustain both interest and consensus on the topic that this needs to change, then you can make it change. And this has changed in the past, will change in the future. You should be writing to your legislators all the time. It might not even share your political leanings, but keep writing to them. That is how you produce productive change. Broad support for violent solutions to political problems degrades society. It's the final position of a detachment from civics, and it's both non-productive and it's entirely negative. So, barring any huge surprises that may come out in the trial, and I think it's important generally to respect the judiciary and the judicial system, and generally to follow its conclusions, to agree with its conclusions. You don't have to, but in general, in terms of finding a fact, I do. And I try not to reach rock-solid conclusions about things based on trials that I may not see. But barring any huge surprises that may come out in the trial, Luigi Mangione is simply a murderer, and his act is not to be celebrated or excused. So that's my view on this. If you want to argue in the comments, I might respond. If you think that you have any new points to make, go ahead and try and make them. But I think I've generally addressed most of the points that tend to come up. I have spent a fair amount of time arguing on this particular point recently because I feel so strongly that vigilante murder is not an acceptable route to produce political change, and that dealing with this through the legislature is really the only way that it's ever going to be fixed. But I have gotten into a lot of arguments with people, and that's why I made the video. Anyhow, take care. I'll be interested to see if anybody produces any new arguments in the comments. But even if not, I'm still glad that I made this. Bye-bye.